Hi guys, welcome to Honest, Straightforward Reviews, where you get unbiased and unfunded reviews. Hi guys, today we'll be looking at the iMac that I've just gotten, the custom build one with the RX 5700 XT 16 gig VRAM graphic card. It's got a i9 top of the range and processor, and it's got 16 gigs of RAMs as well. It's also got a 2 terabyte SSD with the nano glass on it as well. So the tests I'll be running, some of them you'll see with the nano glass on, especially the benchmarks. So what I'll be doing is I'll be running a couple of benchmarks, namely being Unigine Heaven, and I'll be doing that on Mac and on Windows, and then I'll be doing a 3D mark as well, benchmark as well. Now after that I'll be jumping into some games like Fortnite and Mad Max and Resident Evil 3 and etc. So have a look at those. I've got them in the comments when which test starts. This is the full version. I'll also be doing a results only version, which will be a lot shorter. Okay, so without further ado, let's get the test started. So this first test that I'm doing, I'm actually using the Mac's. This is the Mac benchmark for the Unigine Heaven. So I'm actually using the built-in screen recorder. So obviously that'll strain the graphic card, so it wouldn't have the highest FPS. But let's have a look at the end and see how we go. You guys can also look at the smoothness as well. So far I was quite impressed with this because it doesn't really drop a lot of frames. Now the reason I've gone with 16 gigs is, you guys can do this as well. The logic behind that is most games run beautifully on 16 gigs. You do not need 32 gigs. Now the iMac comes with an 8 gig with two 4 gig RAM chips in there. So basically what you can do is buy from Amazon or something like that online, a lot cheaper from Samsung or something like that, RAM kit of 16 gigs. Now when you chuck those 16 gigs in, you've already got 8, so you've got a whopping 24 gig RAM. So I highly suggest to get 8 gigs to start off with, and definitely upgrade it to 16. I've played around with 8 gigs. It's not enough. Your frame rates do drop a lot. Even though the graphic card can handle everything, it's not as smooth. For example, it'll go at 144 frames per second, and all of a sudden it'll drop to like 90, then go back to 144 and then 90. Just those drop-offs would be they wouldn't be there. So there'll be a lot less. So they'll not only the amount, but also how far it drops off to. So from 144 it might only drop to like 130, then back to 144, which is barely noticeable. But when it's doing to 90 and even 70, you can notice those. So with 8 gigs it's definitely not enough for gaming. So if you're getting the iMac for gaming, obviously some of the games I found, for example, very few of the games they'd run okay on the Mac. But if you're doing gaming on the Mac, I'll definitely strongly recommend that you get a boot camp installed on your Mac, since the Macs are going to get Apple Silicon chips soon, and once they do that you can't have boot camp anyways. I hope they can somehow incorporate it in, but from what I've heard they would not be able to run boot camp, so goodbye gaming. However, on the iPad and things like that, like they, especially with the newest one, 120 hertz motion flow, I've played the Fortnite game on that. It hits 120 easily, especially if you play around with the graphics a little bit. So having said that, like it's not a proper external GPU and this and cooling and rah rah and all that, but it does a really good job. It puts most PCs with external graphics, dedicated graphics to shame. So having said that, maybe Apple computers would be really cool in gaming. However, having said that, most games don't run on Macs anyways. So let's see what happens in the market. But it'll be a market that you're looking at least a transition period of 4 to 5 years before you start seeing really good game titles being made for Mac as well and being optimized. I think they'll be really optimized for Mac because of the reason that you've got a whole ecosystem around it, just like an iPad. So just like if you've bought a console like a PlayStation or an Xbox, you'll notice games run a lot better on them because they're optimized. Okay, so that's basically it. You get about 46 frames per second, which is not bad given that how much I've loaded it on. I've put all the presets at extreme and it's at 1440p resolution. So let's give this one a skip and it's finished. So let's turn this off. Let's move on to the next one, which is the Windows test that I'll be running. Okay, so here we go. Now just getting everything started. It's loading. It's exactly the same settings as before when I had it on Mac. So it's at 1440p. It's running natively on the iMac screen, and this gives you a bit of a look on the iMac screen as well. Sorry if it's a bit dirty on the left bottom corner. So let's change the resolution and see if this helps. Okay, let's see what this test is doing. Okay, no, that doesn't look right. Okay. Okay, let's go 1440 and with everything at max. Let's start the benchmark. Hopefully let me start it up soon. Alright, that looks a lot better, 1440. Alright, let's get this benchmark started. Let's look at quality. Yep, ultra, everything is high. Okay, alright. So straight off you'll notice the frames per second are a bit better, and the drop, the minimum isn't as bad as well. Well, it's pretty bad, but like it's for what this graphic card is and for the settings it's running it really well. I think it's running it really smoothly. It's got a really good score even in the Mac. Okay, as you guys can see, it's like it's not buggy. I've done the same test on my MacBook Pro 2019 with the latest graphics and everything, and it was really buggy at even 17 frames per second. It was really slow and things like that. So just gives you a bit of an idea how much power this benchmark is taking. It wasn't like, probably this isn't as smooth, but it's a lot smoother than, especially coming on to that dragon. It was a bit choppy just for a second there, but like on the MacBook it was hardly watchable, especially these sort of angles on the MacBook Pro 2019 with the 8 gig graphic card. Nah, forget about it. wanted to give it a good run as well. I don't know if you guys can hear the fans really kicking up. So the fans do kick up. It's quite a bit noisy, but not at all as noisy as the MacBook Pro. And they also cool off really quickly. So this area was really choppy going into this area. The frame rates were really choppy, as you could see. It's back to this old smoothness. So yeah, so what I was saying is, yep, that's choppiness again there. So anyways, what I was saying basically is, yeah, of course they're two different machines. One's a laptop, one's a desktop. And the MacBook does cost a tiny bit more than this, but the setup I've got on this compared to the MacBook, yeah, I think they're much of a muchness. Like this costs a little bit more than the MacBook Pro. I'm going to be really, I'm looking forward to the next MacBook Pro update, 16-inch, what they're going to do with that. I don't think they will do the Apple Silicon chip on it yet. They might do that on the 13-inch and introduce a 14-inch MacBook Pro with a Apple custom chip, but I don't think they're going to do that yet on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So I'm really looking forward to what GPU they'll be introducing in that. Okay, so it's coming towards the end of this test. Okay, wow, so 53, so that's a bit of an improvement. Now let's have a bit of a look at all three results. So on the top left hand corner you'll have your MacBook without the screen recording. So I just used a camera to record that, whereas on the right top side you'll have the MacBook. On the left side it's the Mac and the right side is the Mac as well, but one's with internal screen recording, the one with the lowest FPS. Then the middle bottom one, that's on Windows. So if you look at the Windows and the Mac, there's a bit of an increase, in quite a bit of an increase in the core, over 100. So that's pretty good. And yeah, so max FPS was a 105, whereas 98. Okay, so there you go. So that's quality. Everything has been ultra and extreme at the settings. Now let's start off the next test that I did, which is the 3D iMac 3D Mark benchmark. Okay, so it's just loading up now. That's in Windows as well, obviously. So from here on, everything else is in Windows. I don't think there's a point in doing it in Mac, because if you're going to game, you might as well game in Windows. And I'm running all of these games natively off the internal SSD, just for your information. Not that it should make any difference on the FPS. So as you can see, it looks quite smooth. I feel like this is more of a proper gaming benchmark. There, it feels a bit choppy and draggy, and yeah. I'll be interested to see what the score would be in the end. So far so good. Looking around, obviously it's a bit choppy. It puts a lot of strain on the computer. But I'd really feel like 16 gigs is quite a bit, and it's enough for that. that part was a bit choppy as well. Right, let's see what it's doing. It's going to run a few other tests as well. I think this one really stress tests the Mac properly, or any computer in that fact. It's not as smooth as I would have liked it. It's around 30, 40, 50 frames per second, drops between that. But it's stabilizing around 50, 52, 53, 54. That's really nice to see. Right, let's going into the next set of tests. I'm really looking forward to the end results for this one. Okay, really choppy here. If you look at those cases where the guns are kept, they're quite choppy. Beautiful benchmark, by the way, really interesting. I really love this one. I mean, Unigen Heaven isn't bad, but this is absolutely interesting. But after you've run it obviously a few times, you get over it. But really interesting. Really stresses your GPU out, I think. Alright, that's the end of that one. Let's see what it does for this one. I think this is the shortest test. The last one is the shortest one it does. Let's see what it does. I think it basically does that. Alrighty. Okay, that's it. Alright, let's go to the score. Wow, 7572, that's quite a bit higher than my MacBook Pro with the HBM2 memory in there. That off the top of my head was just about 5, so this is 2500 more than that, which is really interesting. Now let's look on to a bit of a detailed view. So the frames per second are averaging around 50, just under 50. CPU test was really nice as well. CPU score was 11723. That's really impressive. As you can see, it's the i9 10th gen, the best one you can get, and the GPU is the 5700 XT. Other than that, that's basically it. Test 1, test 2. And test 2 did struggle quite a bit as well. Alright, now let's move on to Fortnite and see what kind of results we can get in Fortnite. Now let me get my... So that's the screen. I normally have a lot of issues with Fortnite giving me a proper screen. It just jumps in and out of full screen mode, Windows mode. Now I've auto set this and it goes, I've put down the resolution to 60 and maxed everything out at basically 1440p. Now I think 1440p is absolutely ideal for gaming. 1080, where you sit obviously depends. If you sit within like a meter from your screen, 1440 is what you can note. If not even a meter, like let's say a foot. If you're sitting at a foot, you'll notice the difference between full HD and 1440p. However, you will not notice the difference between 1440p and 4K resolution if you're sitting at a foot. You need to be closer than a foot to be able to see the pixels and differentiate between the resolution. So I think 1440, where you sit when you game as a computer gamer, that's a really good position. Now obviously if you go further than a foot, like a meter, 2 meters, then 1080 is just as good, and you can really get really good monitors for that, and you can really go to up to 440 frames per second, which is really nice. Okay, so let's look at this. We're hitting 144 and it's dropped down a little bit. Now let me change this around. Okay, alright, so as you guys can see, I'm gonna bump up the resolution all the way to 100 to see what kind of frame rates we'll get. Okay, so as you can see, that's really decent. We're getting above 60 frames per second, well above, and the lowest is 59, 58. So that's really good. Like that's, wow, that's really impressive. You've got 1440, maxed everything out, and it's really giving off a beautiful screen there. You can see everything, you know, and it's full resolution. I generally don't play at full resolution. I rather have the frames per second. 60, I don't really like playing at 60. 144, 120 to 144 is my minimum. I really am comfortable with that. Okay, let's quickly get in before this guy gets a gun. And okay, that's not a gun. I'm not good at this game. I got a gun. No, I didn't. Okay, crap. Okay, I'm dead. Oh, okay. That was a pleasant surprise. Okay, let's get this gun. Now let's play around and check the graphics and see if we can increase it. So there you go, so about 70 frames, even 72, 73 frames you can get up to. Yeah, let's go to 1080 and see what kind of frames per second you get. Okay, I don't like that. Alright, I don't like it when it does that, so let's try and fix that. No. Sometimes when you just swap them around and go back to it, it'll fix itself up. So there you go. Right, full screen, go down to 1080. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, the frames per second have gone up. Let's see if we can get that sweet spot of 144. Okay, yay, alright, it's full screen 1080 with everything maxed out. Let's go in. Okay, so all of a sudden you're at 120, so which is around 100, but a maximum of 124 to 128. That's really impressive. I'm happy with that, you know, at 1080. I'm happy to game at 1080, but to be honest, I'll probably game at 1440p and drop the resolution with everything maxed out and drop the resolution down to 60, 50, see how I go, as long as I can hit that. So let's give that a try, see how we go. Okay, let's drop this a little bit and see 1080p, if we can go up to 144. That didn't do much. Normally it helps a lot, but This time it didn't. So as you can see, between 1440p and 1080, there's quite a bit of difference. Alright, let's go back up to that. Alright, 1440, 80% resolution. What am I getting? Okay, 136. That's really good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Like yeah, as long as it's above 120, I'm happy. I don't get a headache when I play. I'm one of those guys who gets motion sickness. So if I'm playing around more than that, less than that, I get really sick. Oh, okay. Who's shooting? Oh, crap. Okay. I'm not good at this game, so guys, don't bag me. Okay, let's have another go at this. Alright, now. Okay, let's see if I can get that sweet spot of 144. Just playing with random guys, so hopefully they don't mind me playing really crappy team effort. Okay, let's go into settings, 1440. Okay, what if I do this 50? I think I can hit 144 if I'm doing 50. Okay, there you go. So that's pretty. Oh, okay. Drop down to 80 for a few seconds, but that's back up to 144. I'm happy with that. 144, the lowest. Okay, maybe I should bump it back up to 55 resolution. So you guys can play around with this, you know, keep it at epic at everything and just play around with the 3-dimensional resolution. Okay, so it drops down to 120, which is okay. All right, but goes up to 144, 138, 140. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, so there you have it. Gaming at being very satisfied at 1440p with 144 frames with everything set at epic. So that's really impressive for this graphic card. I really like it. So yeah, for someone who's looking for a new Mac to just do their stuff on, and if they want to game as well, I would definitely recommend getting this. Okay, what's going on? Alright, I think somebody's coming. I need to hide the gun. I've got a gun. Okay, I should use this potion thing. I hate the controls. Oh crap, okay. I need to, okay. Oh, okay. Alright, no, okay, I'm dead. Where's my gun? Where's my gun? Oh no. Yeah. Let's move on to Resident Evil 3. Now, Resident Evil 3 resolution 1440. I've set everything as the highest as I can. So as you guys can see, it can't go any higher than that. It just goes to low. So it's maxed out at everything. Everything is on. Just double checking that everything is at 100%. Alright, let's go in game. Okay, so that's not too bad. 70, 72, 74. That's not too bad at all. I'm happy with that. What do you guys think? 100. Alright, there you go. Into the hundreds with everything set at maximum at 1440. Looks pretty good. The game looks pretty good. I really like it. I don't know if you guys had played the original Resident Evil 3. This is looking really good. Right, let me get outside and see if there's fires and stuff burning around and see how this graphic card does it with that and little objects running around. Okay, already, alright, around here. Okay, let's get this guy in the head. I think that's the just okay, 2 bullets wasted. Okay, 3 shots on the head. Alright, he's down. Alright, let's look at your character. How does she look in the details? This is with HDR, by the way. HDR on as well. Let's have her standing in front of a fire with the fire in the background. Let's look at the frames per second. Alright, now let's drop everything down and see if we can play around with it. 1080p. Keep it at that. Lower the image quality a little bit. VSync, I never have VSync off, so high texture but not 8 gig. Okay, that should be walking apart for this. That should definitely be a walking apart for this. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the frames per second. It's pretty high. As long as it's around that 120 mark, I'm happy. Alright, I think that's basically it for this test. Let's move on to the next one. Next one I'm doing is the Terminator game. So let's bump everything up. I don't know if I should keep the VSync on. Let's keep it on, just for the fun of it. Everything is high. Everything is like maxed out and epic. You want to change? Yeah. Alright, cool. I hated what this game does. This keeps auto detecting for some reason. I don't know why it does that. Sometimes. Right, let's get the game started. We've gotten everything done. Alright, so yeah.
Mark's about to pass out. We need to stop soon.
Okay, we'll do that.
That's a given. I mean,
don't think
yeah.
you've been properly introduced. I'm Ryan. That over there is Aaron. She's a doctor of the group. Jennifer's a scavenger and Common,
All right.
yourself what he thinks.
Let's see if we can bump this up a little bit when we get to the spot. So I'm happy with over 60. Over 60 is okay, as long as we are going over 60 frames. Especially if it's moving in this car and it's loading a lot of new things. And
Then what was it, to be honest? I'm not sure myself.
God damn it! That's as far as this piece of shit will go.
Let's get off the road. Pull up over there.
okay, I think this is the place. Now also you guys can see the difference between the iMac nano glass texture and my normal LG monitor. As you can see, when there's a dark screen, you can, even now you can see some of the reflections on, and it's a bit annoying. So with the nano-texture glass you saw there was no reflections, but too bad it doesn't do more than 60 Hz. Alright, so it gets a good solid 60 frames and above. Okay, let's play around with the settings. Okay, 1080, reduce the resolution a little bit, VSync off and everything else, leave it at high. Let's see what it does. See if we can get that magic spot. Okay, so there you go. It's right up there. 120, 30, 40. reduce it a tiny bit more. See if that makes a bit of a difference. But around 80 resolution gives pretty good frames per second. It's looking really good. I really like it. I'm really impressed with this. Okay. Alright, let's move on to our next test. I'll be doing some Warhammer 2 Total War tests. So everything's at ultra. Let's see, advanced. Let's turn these on as well and get it to really push the game. Stream, okay, I'm going to leave that off at 11. And just benchmark it at that and see what we get. Load's a bit slow.
You now have the facilities to begin technological research.
Okay. So not too impressive,
For you to choose the direction of development.
but this is a very graphically intensive game. It really stresses your GPU. That's why I like it. But again, with games like this, you wouldn't be playing it more than 60 frames per second. It's not a first-person shooter. Games like Doom, I can absolutely understand you doing that. But this low is a bit hard to take as well, so probably turn a few things a bit lower would absolutely increase the... Even if I think... Let's finish this one and I'll drop down the resolution to 1080p and see what kind of effects that'll have on the game. Alright, so that's nearly to the end of this test. Let's see what score we get. Right, 53.9, so I think if you play around with a few of those things you can get it up to 60, and I think 60 for this game would be awesome. I would really love to actually play this game and give you guys my feedback about that. Alright, now let's play around with the resolution. I want to really bump that shadow detail up. So let's see. Okay, yep, extreme. Everything else, I think that's basically it. That's all you can get out of it. Okay, turn these on again. Bump this right up as well. Apply these settings. Okay. Alright, let's see if we can get anything different at 1080p. If we can get a bit of a better not press that recommended thing, it'll just take everything out again. Alright, let's get the campaign test started again. Okay, so it boots a bit quicker, or is it just me? It's booting's actually a lot quicker. Oh, here we go, it's struggling again. That felt a bit quicker. Let's see.
You now have
Yeah,
the facilities
felt a
to
bit
begin
quicker.
technological research, my lord.
Right, so 30 frames per second I think it's okay. It's still okay for these sort of games, especially if you've bumped everything right up. 40, 39. I think even 30 frames for a game like this is okay. The visuals are absolutely stunning. However, if you can see, that gets really choppy there when the camera is moving around a bit, especially when it's moving horizontally. Well, that's expected of 30 frames per second, but you're playing for the visuals of this game. It's just absolutely stunning. I think I can even tweak it a little bit more. Now, I've shown a few tests of my MacBook Pro. I'll include a link for that as well in the end. You'll notice the MacBook Pro I tested on was only a 4 gig 5500M processor, and that did really well for the graphic card. Anyway, so there you go, 37 average. That's pretty good at everything maxed out. Let's go on to the next game, which is Mad Max. Let's get out of this. So yeah, it does really good. So what I wanted to say is these are the stock boot camp drivers that it comes with. Obviously, whereas the other one, it has bootcampdrivers.com drivers on there. I'll do a video on that. Let me know if you guys want to see a video on that. So okay, so I've bumped this up to 1440p with 144 Hertz, and everything is the max. It's maxed out, everything. Let's see what the game looks like. So yeah, that MacBook Pro and those drivers, I've tested them a lot. They really stabilize your frames per second, and they actually have drivers that are targeting your frames per second. So I'd really like to see them do something for this. This is new, so if they do something for this, I'd really love to see. I reckon you'll be easily able to get another 30 frames per second out of this GPU, and it'll be a lot more stable as well. So there you go. Mad Max runs really well on this. It's an old game. It's 2015, I think, but it's running great at 1440p with 144 Hertz. So this is a bit of everything I wanted to show you guys. First person shooter, third person shooter, a bit of an open world game as well. So there you go, that's really impressive for Mad Max. Alright guys, hope you guys like this. I'll be doing a shorter version of this as well, just to get the results out to you guys. Have a look at that. Let me know what you think about this channel and what you would like to see. This channel survives on your likes and comments. Kindly subscribe if you can, if that's not too much to ask. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Goodbye.